So this was a bit of a departure for me. So about a year ago, I was looking through the camera on my phone, and I noticed I had a lot of photos and videos of my friends that were vaguely unsettling. And because I was watching a lot of Baddington at the time, side note, Baddington is a very good analog horror creator, you should go check him out. I thought to myself, hey, I could use all these photos and videos to make some kind of analog horror short of my own. And then I shelved that idea for like 8 months. A year later, it's finished, and I'm not so sure about analog, not so sure about horror, definitely not short. This was way longer than I expected it to be, goodness gracious. So in July, I sat down and I said, okay, I finally have enough time to start working on this. What do I want it to look like? What do I want to feature? So I took inspiration from Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, one of my favorite pieces. It's a ballet set in prehistory Russia that features human sacrifice. So I said, okay, I want this to be about human sacrifice, and I did some thinking, and I ended up making the short about a Native American ritual and the effects it had on the land around it. So the problem with that is I'm not Native American and I don't want to be disrespectful to their culture. So I did 3 things. Firstly, I came up with a fictional tribe. Secondly, I used a fictional deity. Thirdly, and any footage I used, I didn't want to use like real Native Americans. I wanted to be as respectful as I could be given the story I was trying to tell. This is the first time I've ever tried something of this style or of this magnitude. So it's been a lot of learning, a lot of growing, a lot of things I haven't done before. I tried to make the story, vague but not too vague, so that you understand that there was connection, there was something going on, there was a through line. I don't know if I succeeded or not. I guess we'll find out. So I started writing the script, and when I started writing, it was going to be just something silly, like 5 minutes long. It's like, oh, it's my friends' faces, and they come out and they get you, ah! But as I started writing the script and developing the lore, things started to change, and I started to get more invested in the story, and I started to figure out, okay, how do I want this to string all these things together? How do I want to make this something that's actually good, or as close to good as I can manage, which is always a bad idea because it added 25 minutes to the runtime. A couple of people I need to thank. I need to thank, of course, my roommate Zeke, who was the unwilling participant in the process of making this. I used his likeness and photos of him in order to make some scary horror. Hope you don't mind. Throughout making the practical effects, of course, Zeke being my roommate, noticed that I was doing something. And one night while I was working here in the shed, I came back inside after finishing up what I was doing. And I asked if he had noticed anything. And he said that he hadn't, but he also wondered what I could be doing in the shed. To which I said, simply, I was up to something. And he didn't like that one bit. He thought that was not very much fun at all. Not to worry, Zeke. It's only an analog horror short featuring you. Some other people I need to thank. Baddington for being the inspiration. I need to thank my 2 voice actors, John Hagen and Colby Vines. John Hagens did the narration for the educational video, and Colby Vines played the part of Dr. Anthony Redder in the audio recordings. And I think that's about it. I didn't want to make this a long introduction.
Hi, this is Michael in VoiceOver. This project originally wasn't going to have any practical effects, but they don't call me Michael Any Excuse for Practical Effects Herzing for nothing. They do call me that. So the main practical effect that was going to take the most time was the bear skeleton ghost thing. In order to make that, I would need to firstly get a bunch of materials, and there's only one place to get materials for a project of this magnitude.
So I just got back from Hobby Lobby, and I had to buy clay, and this was the part that I was most unhappy with because oven baked clay is wicked expensive. I wanna buy the half pound, but I'm gonna need to get the full pound, which sucks because I don't want to, be spending $24 on something that might not even look good. And, and then I looked up a little bit. This, which is on sale for $10. It's 3 3/4 pounds of a baked clay. It's it's so much. I guess I'm gonna have a little extra.
In Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's this wonderful effect near the end of the movie where all the ghosts fly around the Nazis. So I took inspiration for how they did that. So I'm going to let George take this over for me.
And the ghosts, they were actually real little miniature ghosts, with cloth and everything, but they shot them underwater in slow motion so that they would put them on little sticks and they'd sort of fly them around in this little windowed pool of water against a black background. And that gave them this kind of surreal, floaty feel.
So after securing a fish tank for $11, I decided I needed to do some preliminary tests to figure out if this effect was even going to be viable. So I filled the fish tank with water and I played around with this scorpion skeleton looking thing.
Ideally, is this, but that's not ideal because it shines. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, this will work.
So, using the information I gained from the test run, I figured out how big the sculpture would need to be, and I set about making the prop. Well, I discovered quickly that I hate working with clay, like a lot. When it's too hot, it's greasy and it doesn't hold its shape, and when it's too cold, it cracks. Admittedly, I refuse to look up any tutorials on how best to use clay. I hate looking at tutorials, so make of that what you will, I guess. So this is just a time lapse of me working with the clay and making the sculptures, and I think honestly I like how they came out. It took a really, really long time, several nights worth, but I like how they came out. With the sculpture complete and painted, it was time to see how it looked in action. So I filled up the fish tank again and got the lighting how I wanted it, and blammo.
Oh, that's the money shot, baby. That's the ooh haunted.
So how I made it look like it was floating is I painted some wooden dowel rods black and I hot glued it to the top of the sculpture, and that way I could kind of maneuver around. What we're watching right now is me filming the first and only take I could get of the sculpture that looked good. We'll get to why it's only one take in a little bit. That's the sound it makes. Here's how it looks in context without any of the static or filters.
I'm in the garage right now, filming some stuff, taking some pictures of the just the naked skull. Here he is. Here's my little guy. Give me a kiss. I went to school for music composition for 4 years, and now here I am in my garage playing with puppets. I've got a lot going on, I think. Hey Michael, what are you up to? Oh, I made a 30-minute horror movie. 30 minutes. I hope I can keep people entertained for 30 minutes. On a happy note, it is cool that I can just do this. And I can be like, okay, I'm gonna make this now. I think it'd be cool if we had like a puppet. Like a scary puppet that of like a bear skeleton, like a ghost bear skeleton. How would I make that? And then I just kind of make it. I think it's cool that happens, and I just find the materials and I just go and I do it. I like that. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make audio. I'm gonna write a script. I'm gonna find people to record it for me for free, because
Back to Raiders of the Lost Ark. The famous melting skull effect. Well, they achieved this by having a super unstable gelatin, meaning that it melted pretty easily. So I was inspired by this effect to kind of make my own melting skull effect for the final scare, except I didn't have access to gelatin, so I had to make do with what I could find. I'll let me explain.
you know, this model bloody skull looks fine. You know, perfectly serviceable. But you know what I think? I think it could be a little cheesier. Cheese it up! So, here's how to organically make a red goopy melting face. So, you know, I didn't want to like break the bank on this, so what's the cheapest way? I asked myself, what's the cheapest way to... That's bad. What's the cheapest way to achieve this effect? Well, I thought back to my own experiences in the cheese shop, and I realized, hey, this brie cheese is pretty goopy at room temperature. I bet we could use this, so that's what we're doing. This is actually expired by a couple weeks. It does not smell right, but fortunately we're not eating it. I don't know what the white stuff is, but hopefully it'll look cool. I'm just gonna paint cheese on this model bear skull. You know? What are you doing on your Friday night? Probably not that, idiot. Yes. We're doing something. What am I doing here? I have to think about what would be the funniest point for someone to walk in on and just be like, hey Michael, what are you doing? Okay. We're getting somewhere. In case you don't know, this is what getting somewhere looks like. A little more cheese to your mouth. You know what they say. You gotta cheese it up. Gotta be precise about this. Gotta do this right. I'm gone insane. I've gone positively loopy. Oh yeah, that looks like that looks like it's covered in popcorn. That's what we want. And it's kind of hard to articulate. I do have a specific vision in mind. So it's not like I'm just doing whatever. And you just pop it in the fridge for a little bit, for 10 to 15 minutes. Let it cool down, you know? And we're ready to serve. Welcome back to What the Fuck Am I Doing With My Life? Starring me, Michael Herzig. As me, Michael Herzig. Unfortunately, I don't have anything interesting to say here. Why are you just staring at me? Why don't you talk? Why don't you talk for a change, huh? Here he is, you know. It's not like the worst. It's not the worst effect I've ever made.
Unfortunately, all this effort was for naught because I couldn't find any usable footage in this filming session. Either it was too blurry or the skull was moving around too much.
Hey Barrington, was this a good idea? Was it a bad idea?
So ultimately, a failure.
So there's no way to put this delicately. The cheese skull got maggots. What are you gonna do, you know? So I now know what I'm going to do better. I have demaggoted the skull, and I've also washed it very thoroughly. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was gonna smell worse, but it does not, so that's good.
So I made a little stand to set the skull on, and I was ready for my second round of filming.
Gosh, that's an unpleasant image. Unpleasant guy, unpleasant cheesy man. But we can make a bunch of takes if we want to. Lord Jesus, please let this work.
It did.
It'd be a lot easier if I just like half-assed it. I should consider doing that next time, just like giving up halfway through and not caring. A lot of firsts in this project. You know, I've never worked with clay before. I've never worked with paint before. I've never worked with cheese before as a substance for making a special effect. I've never worked with puppets before. I've never worked with Final Cut before. I've never done a horror thing before. I wonder how it's gonna turn out. Because at this point, I really don't know. Like, I think I have some really cool things. And I think I have some really cool concepts and ideas. But, you know, it might just be, like, really boring. Because it's gonna be long. And long things are hard to watch. I think I'm just gonna take the 30-minute long video and, like, distill it down into like a 5-minute highlight reel and then just show that. That's gonna be what I'm gonna do.
It is now my great displeasure to introduce the least valuable player of the production. That.
Oh, fuck. Are you serious? Oh, fuck.
The only reason we got one take is because Mr. Hot Glue does not like mixing with Mr. Wet Paint, or mixing with anything at all. It doesn't even matter if it's wet. So, much to my frustration, it would just keep...
Oh, for fuck's sake. It was working so well.
So this would leave me with a bit of a problem, as I was now stuck. Whenever I tried to reapply the dowel rods using hot glue, the wet paint and the hot glue wouldn't stick together, and they would just fall apart.
There's gonna be a 20-minute long video of me swearing while trying to get this thing to work. And then, like, 30 seconds of usable content.
So, as I said, only one take. I did foresee the problem, and I made these kind of black hooks ahead of time that I could use to maneuver the prop, but they didn't work very well.
Note to self, kill hot glue. Find him and kill him. This was so good. Like, oh, fuck you. I mean, I don't mean fuck you. I just mean fuck.
The only other production notes that would be of interest might surround the mummified woman. So for the model, for the cloth that she's wearing, I use something called Stocking Hall cloth bound cheddar. It's this kind of cheese that's wrapped in cloth for several months before it's eaten. So that's where I got the cloth from to make it look so aged.
So recently, I've been working on some of the props, and I'm almost done. And I just finished Mrs. Dead Lady over there. I like to think, this is all a secret, but I like to think, like, if I get caught in the middle of this, I like to think of, like, what it's like, would be like if one of my roommates walked out and caught me just carrying a model of a torn apart mummy, just carrying it around. I'm not doing anything suspicious. I'm just...
Let's talk about walking in the woods at night. Never ever do it. It's a very, very bad idea. I only did it here because I'm very smart. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's basically not woods. Basically, the only trees there are the ones you're seeing right now. It's very, very thin woods. Otherwise, I would not have done this, because walking in the woods at night is terrifying. Even this little patch of trees right here was enough to give me the collie wobbles. Of course, even this small footage had its production complications. Thank you, Pixel 4a. Love that.
You dick.
The original ending was a little different as well. So that's not a joke. That's actually what the ending was going to be. Back when the whole video was supposed to be 5 minutes long and it was just supposed to be silly, I just, I thought I'd end it with something funny. Like, it builds up to nothing. Of course, 5-minute build up for nothing is a lot different than a 30-minute build up for nothing. So obviously I couldn't keep that as the ending. Finally, we have all the leftover materials.
After all is said and done, I'm left with a bunch of wooden dowel rods, some paintbrushes, some paint, this skeleton scorpion thing, some hot glue gun rods, some sculpting tools, about 249 yards of fishing line, this cloth, and oh hey, there's their model dead woman. We got a fish tank with a hot glue gun and a bunch of tubing for some reason. And finally, about 3 pounds of clay, which is great because I love working with clay.
Also worth mentioning is all the material that I couldn't find a way to use.
Last time I saw him, he was standing in a wheat field.
There was this image which I wanted to use so badly. So this is Zeke Meyer, by the way. This is what I talk about when I say Zeke, and it's important to note, I didn't make him do any of this. I just kind of started rolling the camera, and he just did it on his own. I didn't make him.
Apple.
It's all him.
Orange.
It's not me.
Pear.
I just used what he gave me.
Grapefruit. What do these things all have in common?
I think he's the real embodiment of a jester evil deity, if we're being honest.